Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Tonight is the February 12, 2015 work session of the East Fishkill Town Board. The first part under discussion is the Lake Walton Park concept. It was sometime during the summer. I was up at Dutchess County talking with the county executive and some of his people about infrastructure needs in the town of East Fishkill on Route 50 and on the Route 52 corridor. And then after that discussion, we're just talking about things of interest in the town of East Fishkill, and it's mentioned that Scenic Hudson was very interested in Lake Walton. Well, I didn't, I said, well, that's nice. Scenic Hudson is always looking to preserve property. Lake Walton is, as I recall as a kid camping there, a beautiful, beautiful park. Has been not used for decades. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. And then I got a call from Scenic Hudson and an email. And they said they're very interested in doing something with the Lake Walton Park. Now, what it is Lake Walton Park had been purchased from Mr. Brinkerhoff, and the developer had come in. And Tom, did they get preliminary approval? I don't know if they did get preliminary. 92 large houses around the lake. That was around 2007, then 2008, when the whole real estate market kind of fell off a cliff. Nothing happened out there. Over the years, it just went into bankruptcy. Then it was picked up by a hedge fund from Connecticut. We've had some issues out there. 2 years ago, they were doing work on the dam and flooded out a good portion of our town. We actually established a state of emergency for that. So we always kind of keep an eye on it. I talk with DEC on occasion, dam safety people, to see what's going on. But not much is going on out there. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. So Scenic Hudson contacted us, and they'd like to see it preserved. So we talked about it, and I said, well, what would Scenic Hudson's participation be? And they really were hesitant to say they'd participate. So we talked further. It seems really that Scenic Hudson is interested. This hedge fund has a number of properties. Scenic Hudson is interested in a property, I believe, down closer to the river where they do most of their work, and probably down south a little bit. But this one was kind of like tagged along with the other one that they're interested in. So he said, gee, if the town would be interested, they would like to facilitate some kind of a deal. So, I said, well, we'd be interested. We'd have to look into it a lot further, but we we do like green space, and we do like the environment to save that kind of stuff. So then I got a call, an email, not long after that from the county, and they said that they're also interested because there's two large areas of the rail trail that abut Lake Walton. So we said we'd be interested in taking a look, and Scott and I went out there one cold day in December and walked around the perimeter of Lake Walton and down the rail trails. Cold but nice, beautiful lake. I would couch that it's a beautiful lake, but what I find out from Scenic Hudson with lakes, as we see with Hillside Lake, lakes have a way of turning kind of green and having things grow in them. So it's not a pristine lake. It's not a lake you would think of just diving in, but it is a beautiful area. And when I talked to Scenic Hudson, I said, well, would you have to dredge lake? He said, no, you don't dredge lakes like this. This is the lake that you would just leave. Their thought is they would like to see the town and the county take Lake Walton and just make it a walking park, allow canoeing and that sort of activities, which I thought made sense. But we talked to them a little bit further, and the price tag, what we're told, the price tag is going to be approximately $2 million. We all look out for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. We all look out for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. So for us to come up with $2 million, the county said that they were interested also, being the location next to the rail trail. Then Scenic Hudson did say they would come up with a third. So we would each come up with a third. and they sent us this draft proposal, and they call it Lake Walton Central Park, which is the term that the gentleman from Scenic Hudson used when we were walking around. He goes, it's like Central Park. And it is beautiful. It's like, you know, we do have a lot of residential areas around it, and it is like a beautiful, beautiful park. So the immediate need would be for $2 million for the purchase, and the dam is going to need work. We figure the dam is probably going to need at least $100,000 worth of work. We figure just to secure the dam. I think, Scott, we have to rebuild the discharge so it discharges the correct way. Now it's just like an overflow.
And we want to get into the primary outlet control structure and see if we can clean that.
Yep.
Have it back down and get that operating.
Yeah. The primary, what was it? Primary discharge structure?
Primary outlet control structure.
That's what the engineer called it. So, so
currently that's not in use. So the
yeah,
secondary
is what fluttered us out, actually. So, so I just wanted to provide everybody with a copy of the proposal. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. One thing I did make when he talked about town of East Fishkill and funding and all that, and he talked about Dutchess County, they did say Dutchess County assume ownership of the property. And I did have to send them an email saying that the town of East Fishkill was to participate. We certainly also would be co-owners. We would not just, you know, participate, you know, financially and then have Dutchess County own it. So that's a proposal that's in front of us, and I just wanted to give it to the board. And any comments, any thoughts on it? I mean, it's just, it's a big project, but, well, I'd like to have your thoughts. Anybody want to? And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on it. I go back there often with my kids, and it is really beautiful land. There's great fishing back there, and it's really nice. It's tranquil. My big concern, one of them, is who's going to maintain the property. There's a lot of work back there. There's a lot of there's cinder blocks in the lake. I know they say that you leave it alone, but there's some things. I've seen tires in that lake. It's going to have to be cleaned.
Yeah.
And there's broken bottles at points. Who's going to maintain all of that?
Right, right. We'd spoken with the county about it. Actually, the county is pretty much in the same position that we're in, as nobody has just a lot of extra cash floating around. This was not a budgeted item. None of us, when we did our budgets last year, had ever thought about this. So yes, that was brought up, and there will be some need for maintenance. Would that be done this year if we purchased it? That's a question. Would that be something that would be budgeted for next year? We all look out for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. We all look out for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. We all look out for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. Our agreement with the rail trail is that the county takes care of the larger issues along the rail trail, and we do like a regular, like we'll mow up and down, and then we'll do minor repairs or minor maintenance. But anything too big, then we call DPW or the parks up at Dutchess County, and they take care of that. We've had this relationship with them, but as the county and I both said, we didn't budget for that this year, so that's a big question.
Would some of this come rec development funds?
Well, how we would fund it would be the question, because we certainly don't have, say, $700,000 just laying around. So we all look out for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. I know rec development could actually be, we could actually look at the rec development fund. I mean, I would consider it, this is my opinion only, I would consider it as passive recreation. You know, we have a lot of football fields, we have a lot of soccer fields. Probably not enough, I know. We never seem to have enough of them. But we really don't have any passive recreation. I mean, I walk in the park with my dog, and across the street, we're going to have 100 acres after we get done with our project. Across the street, we'll still have 100 acres. But we really don't have any actual passive where you can go. We have Emmerdine Pond, you can put a canoe in over there.
Right.
But that's about it. So I could see it being added as passive recreation. That may be one of the funding sources, or a bond, and that would be the other funding source. As I said, we just don't have the money in the bank. So it could be a long-term bond, or it could be a combination of rec development.
And what about the monies to do the dam repair work? Does that come from the county and us, or just us?
That's a good question. We hadn't got to that point yet. The dam does not affect the county. We're the only ones that get flooded
Right.
out, so. But they do understand the dam would need that work, so we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Our
Also-
town's in their county.
Yes,
only
yes.
fair.
Until we have an emergency, we need money, then all of a sudden, we all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill.
Do we have an idea of how much that dam is going to take to fix?
Yeah, we're thinking about $100,000, depending, yeah. But the other thing too, Scenic Hudson, a little bit hesitant, but they did say that they'd help with grants, if they would look for grants. I know they gave a list of grant opportunities. But grants are grants are grants, and we've tried grants many, many times in the past. I don't know how that would go. So, but that's it. But I mean, what I would say, well, I'd just like to get everybody's thoughts on it. Peter, any thoughts?
Two quick thoughts that have, both involve money. What would this take off the tax map? Ballpark a year?
Be $6,000, about that.
What's it take out of the sewer district?
That would be a bit more than that, we'd have to look at recalculation of the sewer, because it is paying the debt, part of the debt in the sewer district, so we'd have to recalculate that, to see what that actual impact would be.
Peter, I have that figure for you over here if you want.
Because those would be the
Pass
two
it over
big,
to him.
those could be the two big questions.
That's a
Yeah.
2015 actual tax that we collect out of that property.
Yep,
And includes the sewer also.
yep.
It's $6,000,
Well, it's $6,000 for the property, and about $80,000 for the debt,
about
I think is what it is.
$120,000 we're collecting.
Well, that's with the county, that's not what we get, we only get $86,000. That's the total tax bill for the county and the other smaller districts. We all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill. We all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill.
It
So
is
we'd have to
exploded.
take a look how we could reapportion that, if it could be reapportioned, or who else is coming on.
And then what would be the main goal of buying this land? What's the long-term goal, would be my
Yeah.
next question. Picnic tables and picnic benches, or, that'd be my only other thought.
And I only bring this up because it's an opportunity. I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing.
Yeah.
But the opportunity is here, and if we say we're not really interested, that's fine, but if we did want to pursue it,
No,
this is the time. So I don't know, I just want to throw it out to everybody.
I'm not against it, I'm not for it, one way or the other.
Yeah,
Just, I think those are things that would have to be looked at, and then in realistic terms, what'd this guy pay for it? Is he trying to make a quick $1 million overnight, when he realized that, wow, I bought this on a song, and it's gonna cost me $100,000 to fix a dam that I own? It'd be the
yeah,
other-
well, I can't say anything for this, if they'd even sell, because I don't think they'd even, nobody's really settled on a price. This is just the value that the St. Cloud had come up with, so. Anybody else, Councilman Marinero?
Yeah, I have some comments. I've done a little bit more research about this project. John, I don't know how much you know about Scenic Hudson as an organization. I have pulled some of their tax records. I have it with me. But to go over what just Peter said, by us going toward the purchase of this property in partnership with Scenic Hudson and Dutchess County, we're pulling off the map, the tax map, this property. We're going to have to come up with a third for the purchase price, and we're going to have to maintain this property,
Yes.
which is going to be a big burden on our community. The other option, which is also more important, is for this developer to sell this property. If we are able to build 92 homes, large homes, that's a lot more taxable income for our
Oh,
town.
absolutely, absolutely.
So by reviewing this project briefly, I think it's a a loss-loss situation for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. I know that some of the council people tonight have addressed cost. Cost is very important. First of all, we do not have the money. Money is not coming out of the hat. Grants, again, as we all know, that's tax dollars that we are paying. So we will be paying for this property 3 times. Comes off the tax roll, that's once. We're going to come up with our money, that's 2. And then we're going to have to maintain this property, that's going to be 3. So the taxpayer of East Fishkill are going to pay dearly for this property. That right now, it's private. And I don't see anything wrong with that. So, so that the community knows this is a big issue. It's a big issue for me, and it's a big issue for our community. As far as Sidney Hudson, are you familiar with this organization?
Yes, I've only met him a couple times, so.
This is a company that in 2010, there was a $212 million company. This is an organization that works on grants, tax dollars, and you could share it if you want. You can look at it. Some of the directors of the company, they have quite large salaries. Some of them $800,000 and $900,000. That's what they're showing on the tax forms. Also, I was able to pull out, and this is for our lawyer, some past property owners that have been taking this organization to court. And maybe you could pass it around. You guys can look at this.
You have their tax forms here?
Yep, that's 2010. I did a lot of research.
But what
on
is
that,
the point on their tax forms, how much they make?
It says in there. If you look at it,
Yeah,
throughout the whole thing, you'll see
Yeah.
the names.
yeah.
And you see how much they declare.
Okay.
Some of them declare $800,000 to $900,000.
Okay. And the point has to do with this project?
The point has
They're
to do
overpaid.
is that this is an organization. I also did a little research. I didn't know that East Fishkill was part of the Greenway Compact community. Again, doing a little Google on these, you come up with name of environmental activists. And just off the hat, there was a gentleman, Wendell Berry. These are people that they want to grab as much land possible, take it off from the tax map and take it off from the private so that they could hold it ad infinitum. Again, the taxpayers are financing these projects. This is not money that comes out of their personal accounts. It's you, John, me, Peter, and our town lawyer. We pay for this land that these people are appropriating from our tax maps. And they're doing this all over the place. So this is another issue that I personally have with this project.
I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing.
Yeah.
The EPA is also involved into this. I mean, mentioned in the paper that we received over here. These are all companies that are Environmental Protection Fund, State Consolidated Fund application process.
No, those are grant sources, correct?
Correct. But these are all organizations that are all in it for the same scope of appropriating private property. And at the end of the day, I look for the taxpayer of East Fishkill. I look out for them. Because
Well,
we're going to have to...
we all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill. We all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill. We all look out for the taxpayer of
I
East
agree.
Fishkill.
That's why we have a discussion. We're going to have to, somebody has to finance for these projects. And again, they will have to pay sooner or later 3 times, not once. So that's something dearly to keep in mind when we go over and getting involved in this project. I will stay very far away from a situation like this.
Okay.
We live in I believe this is a rural community. We could walk anywhere and, birds, turtles, coyotes. I don't see any reason why we need to take this property from the private and put it into a park. Right now, John, as you know, we have the lake in Hillside Lake where we can't find money to fix that lake over there. Now we're getting involved with another situation where this is going to put a burden on all of us to really, how we're going to find the funds for this. So I just want to bring all the information to the table, and so that I know that Peter had some question and so did everybody else. Personally, my personal take on this is to stay away from this project.
I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moreover, I wanted to ask our town lawyer, the draft, was it this put up by, we prepared this, Tom, or somebody else did?
St. Scenic Hudson did it.
Yeah, Cynic Hudson.
Yeah.
And there is where it says near-term implementation steps. And one says the town and county contact the owner to urge acceptance of the offer. What does the word urge mean?
Well, when you read the entire proposal, first of all, the company that owns it, a hedge fund, as the supervisor indicated, had filed bankruptcy. The prior owner filed bankruptcy. They held the mortgage on. Apparently, Scenic Hudson is negotiating with the hedge fund for another property, and the hedge fund expressed interest in also selling this one. So I think that's why Scenic Hudson's even involved in it, because it's kind of a 2-for-1 from the hedge fund type. Urge means that if everybody agreed to go forward with it, then the town board, the county legislature, and Scenic Hudson would contact the owner jointly and negotiate. I must tell you that in my prior dealings with Scenic Hudson, and you're right, it's a community decision, but in the other town I represent, there was a development proposed of 288 condominiums on 342 acres of land, and it was sponsored by Ginsberg Development, which is a very large development corporation. And the community, of course, was very concerned, just as when Lake Walton was before the planning board, about the traffic and the roads and the impacts that it would have. And Scenic Hudson received most of their funding from the former owners of Reader's Digest, the Wallace family. And when Mrs. Wallace passed away, she left Scenic Hudson like $250 million, the sole purpose of which was to enable them to acquire property, keep it as open space for the benefit of the entire community. So in the example I'm using, Scenic Hudson partnered with Westchester County and the town of Cortland, and they acquired the 346 acres so that the development did not go forward. And you're right, there are ongoing costs and school taxes and everything. But there, the community, once they discussed it, they came together and they fully supported it. And to this day, almost 15 years later, it's a very wonderful open space park with walking trails and things like that, very passive. I must say it's very low maintenance because it's not mowed area and picnic benches, but rather, as Councilman Franco said, people walk the property, maybe fish and things like that. So they've done that. They've done a lot along the Hudson River and acquiring open space parcels, a lot in Phillipstown, things like that. So, but I mean, it's a decision the whole community has to make about it. But usually what they do is they try to vet the proposal to their partners. If everybody agrees, then they go forward and negotiate it out with the property owners. So.
Thank you, Tom. And I think, so I would disagree with Councilman. I mean, there is a cost. It does come off the tax rolls, and it does cost us the purchase. But in this instance, Scenic Hudson would also participate, which is something to be said for that. The one point I think I would like to make is that, say they were allowed to build 90 houses or whatever, you know, everybody says, oh, well, there's no burden to the taxpayer on a house. Well, there is a burden to the taxpayer on the house. I mean, we'll get our mortgage taxes and we'll get the ratables, but that doesn't really keep up with the impact of the school system. That doesn't keep up with the impacts to the road that we have to maintain, the police calls, and the emergency calls to these. So you can develop it, and yes, you get ratables, and we've seen this quite often in the town, but I've always been of the opinion, I've told the Economic Development Corp, that really residential housing doesn't carry itself. There is that cost also. So, but what we have before us is just a concept. I wanted to bring because they actually approached us about it. They wanted to know we're interested in it. I wanted to bring it to the board tonight because I can't speak for the board, and I'd just like everybody to take a look at it. We will certainly look at the financials, the impacts, if we were to pay it, what would the actual costs be, and get that back to the board. If you don't mind, Mark, we'll sit down maybe next week, start crunching some numbers. Sure. You know, because we can say, well, this is what this cost is, but let's sit down and really, put down some numbers, and we'll get back to the board. And it's just something that either we go forward, which we possibly could, and if we say no, this just doesn't fit our plan, and then we could always, say thank you very much, and we can't do this.
When you say to Mark, put some numbers together, what are you implying? I mean, what is that you?
Well, I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing. Yeah. I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing. Yeah. Figure how much you're going to bond, if you're going to borrow.
Why would we want to bond on something that is private right now? I mean, why would I want the taxpayer of East Fishkill carry another bond when I really don't see the need for that? I mean,
well, if you want to make the decision now, I would rather look at it.
It seems like right now you're pulling the rabbits out of the hat. The question was asked, how much is it going to cost, and you don't know where the money is going to come from.
Oh, no, as I said
why do we have to bond?
Excuse me, let me answer your question. I mean, Councilman D'Alessandro said, would some of it be rec development? I said, yes, some could be rec development. I could consider this passive recreation. Some of this could be bonded. We could take a look at this. You could at least give us a chance to take a look at what the numbers are going to be. I know you said that the taxpayers are going to pay 3 times. And maybe there is a value to open space. Maybe people do like open space, or maybe people would like a park. So I would at least like the chance to take a look at the actual figures. And if we at least give it a chance to look at it, if everybody says, no, I have no problem with that, but I'd at least like the chance to take a look at the numbers. I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing. Yeah.
Again, the numbers, I mean, this is a discussion. This is not a discussion back and forth between you and I. I express my opinion. I really don't see that we have it in our fund $4 or $5 million available. We don't have it.
I don't think so.
We don't have it for other projects that we really need to spend the money. Like you said, the budget is tight. Our controller said that we do not have a lot of money available. And, you're asking him to see funding with long-term bonds. This is not a necessity. We don't need to
No, it is not a necessity. Absolutely not. It's not a necessity.
John, you have a theory that and we spoke about this in private. You're an environmentalist, and that's your opinion. But to bring project to our town, where it's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money, I really don't even think it should be on the table.
Okay, no problem. I'd like to know what the rest of the board feels. I know you're more pro-development than I, obviously, but I'd like to see what the rest of the board thinks.
Well, I think our community is made up of people who want to see development, but there's also people who like green space. So you represent those people too. We all represent those people, even the environmentalists. If you don't like them.
No,
but,
I don't represent those guys for sure.
Well, you do if they live in the town. We all do. Yeah. So they are our constituents, and the constituents have a say. And I mean, not saying that I'm for this. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot, But, I mean, if it's not going to cost us anything to take a look at it, then I don't see a problem just to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
I think doing our due diligence and running the numbers is fine.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we're going to accept it.
Absolutely not.
Because I think there's a lot of red flags.
Absolutely
You
not.
know,
But running
Councilman,
the numbers just to see where,
when I said that, and, you know, the town supervisor addressed to the controller, put the numbers together. I mean, what are the numbers to be put together from the controller? We're talking about bonding, borrowing money,
Well,
long term.
possible.
possible. We're not-
We don't
that
have
doesn't-
it,
that
but we
doesn't
don't
mean-
have it.
but that doesn't mean that
Excuse
we're
me,
gonna do it.
excuse me, and I know you keep saying, I said possibly use some rec development funding. And I know you said $4 or $5 million, we're talking about $700,000 in that range. You said $4 or $5 million, we're looking at $700,000, sir. We all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill. So if you would just give me a chance to look at rec development, possibly a combination of the both. I understand your thoughts, but I would just like at least to take a look at it. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing.
Yeah.
And if that's okay, Peter, are you okay if I take a look at it?
I'm all for taking a look at it and looking at the realistic cost.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to know what the realistic idea is for the whole piece. And the other thing is, I was just asking Scott, I said, okay, this is great, can I sell this big piece off over here? And he says, no, it's all wetlands, so we don't need that part. But, my question is, they had how many houses to be built here on 230 acres?
92.
92 houses.
Yeah, and that preliminary would have expired by now, too.
Yes, it
So
does.
there is
That's
no-
right. There isn't any approval that's valid right now, but they had gotten preliminary approval.
They get preliminary approval to build 92 houses
Right.
on a piece of property that's got to be 40 to 50
140
acres of good land?
Right.
Wow. Okay.
So are you okay if I at least take a look at the numbers?
I'd like to know the real story before we take a vote on it.
Okay, and we're not going to vote on it.
We're not
I mean,
gonna vote on it.
I just want to know if we want to go forward and pursue this any further. We just say, thank you very much, we're not interested. Now, I know I've been characterized tonight as an environmentalist, which, yes, I am. I believe a lot in the environment and the water table. I like the environment, and I
And
like...
global warming,
Excuse me?
and global warming.
I'll take some
Are
global
you-
warming right now.
Yeah, we could use...
It's cold out there.
Okay. I'll ignore that. I'll ignore. There's certain things, and I know obviously you and I disagree. I believe there's climate change, and I know that you don't believe in this climate change, and that's fine. We can respect each other's differing opinions. But when it comes to the town of East Fishkill, and you can call me an environmentalist, which I have no problem with, but what I would like to see in the town of East Fishkill is what I consider balanced growth. We changed our laws to encourage redevelopment down to the 650 acres of IBM, the IBM West property, which I think is the place to have economic growth. We are doing a project across the street, which I think will provide needed housing. I would think that possibly another part of the whole puzzle to maintain some semblance of balance would be also maybe to preserve, and I like to preserve, some open space. And I have no problem if the board doesn't want to, and I have no problem if the costs are prohibitive, we certainly won't pursue it. But I'd at least like the opportunity to look into it. And again, I believe in balanced growth. I mean, you could build houses from here to Timbuktu, and I don't think that's going to increase our quality of life. But that's just my thoughts on that.
Just one thing to add, John, is that those rec development funds can only be used for things like this.
Yeah.
So it's not choosing between this and paving roads, or choosing between
Right,
this
right.
and, it's choosing between this and some other rec.
I know rec development could actually be, we could actually look at the rec development fund. I mean, I would consider it, this is my opinion only, I would consider it as passive recreation.
For those funds,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I think there's
So
$1.2 million from the rec development
roughly
fund.
right now.
And there's going to be another 100 and some thousand, I think, from the project across the street that gets approval. So I understand that, money is tight, but there is some rec development funds that maybe help us to offset. But if the board will...
Whatever portion, yeah.
Yeah, but if the board will allow me to look into that, and then I have no problem. Yes,
only
yes.
fair.
Until we have an emergency, we need money, then all of a sudden, because I'm here also to protect the taxpayer. Yes,
only
yes.
fair.
Until we have an emergency, we need money, then all of a sudden, because I'm here also to protect the taxpayer. We all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill. I mean, I have no, I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not married to this thing.
Yeah.
We all look out for the taxpayer of East
I agree.
Fishkill. And so I said, well, that's a nice idea. I didn't really give it much thought. Yes,
only
yes.
fair.
Until we have an emergency, we need money, then all of a sudden. But sometimes you have to take a look at projects that come down the pike. So, thank you very much.